You're listening to Beyond the Measure, episode 20. Listen as I, a young choir director, and my husband, a young composer, interview other music educators in order to gain insight into their own success in the classroom. We have a lot to learn, and we want you to learn with us. No matter your age, ensemble, or experience, this is the ideal podcast for music educators, composers, and students alike. So join us as we go beyond the measure.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Measure. I am your host, Christian, and I am unfortunately not joined by my beautiful co-host, Kara. She came home from work today and she was not feeling well. She was exhausted from the day's work and handling middle schoolers almost every day of the week. That can really take a toll on you. So she wanted to just take the evening to really rest and get rejuvenated. But I'm really excited for today's episode. We are finally able to dip our toes into the orchestra side of the conversation when it comes to education. Those of y'all that have been listening from start to finish, you've probably noticed we are definitely have more of a choral background, and we know a lot more people in the choral world. But we don't want that to be. We don't want you to think that that's just the main focus. That's all we're really focusing on. We've tried to keep it in a way where a lot of the things that we talk about can still be applied to your own ensemble, but it is healthy to try to get a wide variety of perspectives. And so today, I'm excited that I'm joined with Mrs. Allison King, who is the orchestra director at LD Bell High School in Hurst, Texas. And LD Bell is, those of y'all that have heard our previous episodes, that's where Kara graduated from, and she wasn't in the orchestra, but she was there while Miss King was there, and we know a couple people that were in her program that went to Hardin-Simmons over the past few years, and one of which is she's a freshman this year, so we know they're doing lots of good stuff over there. But Allison, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and I also forgot to mention that I connected with you originally, since we have those connections to Bell through Kara. Last year when I was traveling and recruiting, I stopped by Bell and I talked to the choir, and then I talked to your orchestra, and I kind of got to plug the school a little bit, and so that's how I got to meet Allison. And then a while back, I did an arrangement of a piece for string orchestra, and so I got her feedback on that as well, and so that was really, really helpful. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. That was a pleasure.
Well, I'll probably be sending some more stuff your way one of these days. So
absolutely, anytime.
Cool.
Anytime.
Awesome. Well, Allison, thanks again for being on the show. Could you start by just telling us, what all, how did you end up where you are? How long have you been at LD Bell? And you can just tell us your whole story from how you came to do music up till now, and you can get as specific as you want.
I have kind of an unusual story, a long story. My father is an orchestra director, and he's a very fine orchestra director. He has been around for a very long time, and he just retired actually the February before COVID hit, which hit in March of 2019. So he retired in February of 2019. But growing up, my father was a founding member of a lot of the things that we do in music education now. He helped run MENC and ASTA, and he was the president of many ASTA chapters throughout the United States because we moved around a lot when we were younger. And so I grew up in a musical family, basically. And he ended up founding the orchestra programs in Las Vegas. And so there are some very fine programs in Las Vegas now. And he started there, and then he went to UT Austin and earned his doctorate at UT. And so I lived in Austin for a year when I was younger and got to see the string program down there. And then he moved to Hawaii, and he taught at Punahou School. And so I got to attend Punahou, which is the school that Barack Obama went to.
Wow.
And so he was the orchestra director there for a few years. And then we moved to California, where he was the orchestra director at University of Pacific. And that was in Stockton in California. And so I got to be a member of that orchestra when I was very young. I believe I was in 8th grade when I joined the college orchestra. And so I got a lot of experience learning on my cello, getting to play all of the incredible pieces they did there. To get to do the planets when you're 13, 14
Wow.
years old is kind of a cool
Oh, yeah, for
experience.
sure.
In addition to every Tchaikovsky and Beethoven and Shostakovich and whatever else you can think of symphony. And so I was a cello performance major actually in my undergraduate. I studied from Ira Lane in high school, and he was the principal cellist of the Philadelphia Orchestra for many, many years. And then he went to teach at University of Pacific. So I studied with him, and he was so much fun. I really enjoyed working with him. And then in my summers in high school, I went to Interlochen for 3 summers. And so I was able to learn from Pamela Frame of the Eastman School, and many different incredible people came there, including Yo-Yo Ma, who I ended up performing with. It was really
Wow.
quite an amazing
Oh, it's
experience.
amazing.
We played the Bloch Shlomo, and I prepared the orchestra for him before he arrived. This was right after he had just had back surgery, so he had had some vertebrae fused, and so he wasn't able to prepare the orchestra as long as he would have liked. So then they had me do it because I had learned the piece, and it was a profound experience. He had 60 Minutes following him around, which was kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
And so I ended up on 60 Minutes just by chance with him.
Wow. So we
Yeah,
can go
back
back
in
and find you.
1995, I want to say,
Okay.
in the summer of
Wow.
1995 when they did his bio, long time ago. And so, that was kind of amazing. And then I met Larry Livingston at Interlochen, who was the dean of USC at the time. And I said, I'm really interested in USC. And he said, well, you should come check it out.
And what is
And so I
USC?
auditioned University of Southern
Okay,
California.
gotcha.
And so I auditioned for Ron Leonard, who was the principal cellist of the LA Phil, and he was also their cello, one of the 2 cello teachers there. And he happened to have a spot open, and he took me, so that was pretty cool. So I went to USC for 4 years, and I did major in performance. But when I graduated, I said, I love the teaching world. My father had me doing, sectionals and private lessons from the time I was really young, and I just loved it. And so my dad was looking for a career change, and he said, you know what? Why don't we go see if there's a district where we can go both go teach? And I said, that's a great idea. So we went and moved to a little town called Porterville, which is at the base of the Sequoia National Forest in California. And it's kind of on the desert floor. It's a very small town, kind of in between Bakersfield and Fresno. And there's not a lot around there except, oranges and cows. And that's where we got our start. And he and I, we started I was the head middle school director, and I taught at 9 elementary schools,
Oh my gosh.
all in 1 year.
Wow.
And so we would go to 5 schools a day, and he was the head high school director. And then he went to 8 other elementary schools. And so we all went to 9 schools a day. We kind of traveled in a caravan together. And so when he was there for a few years, we built up the program. And then after my 3rd year, I met the love of my life, and we moved to Texas so I could earn my master's degree. Because my undergraduate was in performance, it was a much more difficult route to get my teaching credential. And so luckily in California, they had a rule that you could still teach while you were earning your credential, because at the time they had this lateral kind of program. And so for 3 years, I was driving to Bakersfield every other day right after I taught. So I teach these 5 schools all day, and then I drive 45 minutes to Bakersfield and take classes, because I didn't have all of the music education classes I needed, including classes on things like, teaching reading in the classroom, which was not really what I did or have ever done. But, they have those education classes in there that I needed. So, I did that for 3 years. And then I said, okay, and got married, and we moved 2 weeks later to Arlington, where I started working on my master's at University of Texas at Arlington. And Ann Witt actually recruited me there, and her husband was Bob Witt, who was the president of UTA. So they kind of helped us out, get connected in the area. And so my husband started working at UTA as a police officer, and he still does today. And then I earned my master's, and after the first year of working on my master's there, I was hired by Bill Huff at Martin High School. And so I started teaching at Martin High School and in Arlington, where I met Mark Chandler, which was amazing. And so after that, I taught there for about 6 years, and then I moved to LB Bell as the head director. And of course, Mark Chandler was then also at HEB, and so he hired me in HEB as the head director at LB Bell High School. It's kind of a long route to get there,
Yeah.
but that's how I did it.
No, that's really cool. We always make a point to ask all of our guests their stories, and just so that those people that are listening, especially the younger people, can see how many people go through such a long, winding journey to get where they are now. Because
boy, that's absolutely true.
yeah,
for everybody.
Yeah, it's so easy for I mean, even me now. I mean, I've graduated a year and a half ago, and we're living here where we graduated, and we'll see where we go. But that it just reaffirms to me that, hey, there's a long journey ahead, and we'll see where it goes. It's gonna be an adventure, but we're gonna end up in a good place.
That's absolutely the truth. The one thing that I tell all of my student teachers is that you never start at your dream job.
Yeah.
You work your way there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get started first, and you're lucky when you follow that journey to be where you're very happy and feel like you fit. So
yeah, exactly.
Eventually, that place will get there.
For sure.
You just got to get through the first few years. I never wanted to teach at 9 schools a day, or or a week.
Yeah.
But and not to mention, when I first started, those 9 schools, I taught 9 different subjects.
Oh, wow.
I never had just one thing that I taught.
Really?
So I would teach, beginning and advanced orchestra at the middle school.
Mm-hmm.
I'd teach guitar, which I was not a guitarist before I got there.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was fun. I got to stay one step ahead of the students.
Yeah.
Then at the elementaries, I was teaching beginning, middle, and advanced choir, which is crazy because I'm not a vocalist.
Yeah.
I can sing, but not, dealing with the changing voice is always a fun and interesting thing, and with 6th grade boys,
Yeah.
And general music and stage production. I don't know why stage production was a class at the school that I was at, because they just had us doing art, actually. But it ended up being, that's what they called it. It was stage production. Wow. And then beginning and intermediate and advanced elementary strings.
Wow.
And so I taught all of that while in my first 3 years.
Wow.
And,
lots of versatility.
It was interesting.
Yeah. Wow. That was something I was going to ask about. Was I didn't know if all of those. So you taught at those 9 elementary schools, and was that still a part of that one job position you got, or was it?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yes, it was.
That's crazy. And so you taught a lot of those different things. And I do want to ask, I don't want to stay on this too long, but because we've talked a lot about choir in past episodes, but that is a very unique perspective, especially you have an orchestra background, and you were thrown into a position of having to teach 6th grade boys of all age groups too. Right. That's even worse.
Right.
For choir, which
there was a lot of monotone singing in
exactly.
that age level.
So, I mean, how was that for you? I mean, and how did you go about doing that?
Well, they were incredibly sweet kids.
That's good.
The other thing I didn't mention is 90% of the population were actually not American citizens necessarily.
Wow.
They were. I mean, they might have been, but
Mm-hmm.
they did not speak English.
Yeah. Wow.
And so for the first 6 months of the year, I taught a lot of the classes in Spanish.
Wow.
And it's funny for my father, who was teaching, because my mother is a Spanish teacher. She was a Spanish teacher for 45 years, AP Spanish, French.
Wow.
She taught all of it. She actually studied in Spain and translated textbooks.
Oh
I mean,
gosh.
that's how
you know.
incredible a Spanish teacher she is.
Yeah.
And my father didn't speak a word of it. So, so being thrown into that kind of situation, I guess they kind of thought he was the funny grandpa a little bit, because he knew just enough to say things like ombligo derecha, which means belly button to the right, so then they'd stand and turn to the right.
Yeah.
But teaching those kids was just such a challenge, not only for the language barrier and the cultural barrier, which is also a massive, thing that but the fact that I didn't teach choir, I wasn't trained in choir. I sang in choir when I was younger, but I never had problems with the changing voice, and so that is quite a challenge. I did a lot of teaching those boys how to sing, bottom parts and just try to match a pitch.
Yeah.
And just try and just try and just try and try to drill it into them. But could I have done better? If I'd had the training, I could have done a lot better, as anyone says. But I feel like there's a lot of band directors that sometimes are told, okay, now you're going to teach orchestra, and they're not sure what to do. Maybe they had some classes in string tech, but that doesn't do what you need, in order to properly teach string technique usually, unless you have just extensive lessons in stringed instruments. So it happens. You can get thrown into teaching something, but again, you never get your dream job right off the bat.
Sure. Yeah.
So you just do the best you can and hang on, and then if you're not happy, you look.
Yeah.
Until you find something you like.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you have to just stick with one for a little while you're looking.
Right. Exactly. But that is true. I've seen many people who hang on until they find the right one.
It'll come. Don't worry. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, you do bring up a good point that you said you had a little bit of experience in choir prior, and even though that was a long time before that, or I think that's what you said, I imagine that still helped you a little bit in terms of, I mean, you at least knew what a choir sounded like,
Exactly. Right. And being in all of the extremely high level institutions that I was, I had been privileged to have been a part of when I was younger, really gives you some extreme training in musicianship. So, those skills are always going to be there. It doesn't matter what kind of music that you do. The question is the technique and all of that you don't have, to really ask for help whenever you can.
Oh, yeah.
Because, for example, even in full orchestra, which I do now, I know when I'm in over my head. And that's why building those relationships with your band directors and your choir directors is so valuable.
Yeah.
Last year we played Finlandia and we brought the choir in, and we went to UIL playing Finlandia with the choir.
Wow.
And oh my gosh, was that an incredible experience. But you have got to form those relationships and ask for help when you are in over your head, because it doesn't do anyone any good if you don't know what you're doing and you don't get that help for those students, because you want to get them the best experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that in itself, I think it's easy to to want to avoid, because we all have pride, right? But ultimately at the end of the day, you're also putting yourself into a corner of, okay, well, whatever happens here truly is on me, because I didn't do what I could have done to try to get that help.
Absolutely.
But so those of y'all listening, y'all know pretty much every single guest we've ever had on this show has said the exact same thing, is that if you are ever in a situation where you need to teach in a scenario or an ensemble or a setting that you feel like you have little to no experience and you're not qualified, then you need to get help by any means necessary. So y'all heard it here. And so we've heard that from so many people.
And when I was teaching those choir students in elementary school, there was a seasoned teacher who was also teaching choir and general music, and he had been there a really long time. And so I immediately went to him and said, okay, how do I teach these students that don't speak English choir? And he gave me some great songs in Spanish and some games that they could play to learn how to, he had this song called El Florón. And, you would sing El Florón pasó por aquí, yo no lo vi. And they'd pass this little ball around the room, and it would be their flower, and it was really cute. And they really loved that game. And then we'd hide the flower, and no one could know who had the flower. Everybody had to pretend to pass it. And then whoever had it, we could go, yay! It was just a great little game. but at the same time, it got them singing, and they were singing in. And then the song also goes, pass the flower round and around. So they're learning the English and the Spanish both at the same time.
That's so cool.
It was kind of a way to help them learn, not only to sing and have a good time in music, but also to learn some English so that they could start integrating. So within 6 months, we were teaching mostly in English.
Cool.
But
That's
we
awesome.
always started the year in Spanish because we never knew who we would get and how well they would be able to speak the language to begin with.
Cool.
So it was a really great experience.
Very cool. Yeah, I remember, I think it was Dr. Romines, our choral director at HSU. I think it was him that said, I could be wrong, somebody that we studied under in the past said that they had heard some other great conductor say that, it really doesn't matter what language the ensemble speaks that you're conducting. You just need to know how to say too slow, too fast, too loud, too soft. And
right.
that's pretty much all you really need to know how to say ultimately. That's what it boils down to.
Right. It's interesting in conducting because every conductor has their own way of expressing what they want to their orchestra or their choir or their band. Everyone conducts differently. And some people are very opinionated about it. They say you have to do this or you have to do that. But at the same time, if the orchestra or the choir or the band understands your language, then how necessary is it to try to do what someone else thinks is, what somebody else is trying to impose upon you as what should be the language?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I've had many people over the years, usually, I hate to say it, but usually those that are a little egocentric about what they want to express, and they say things like, oh, you should go do this and you should go do that and you should go study this and go study. But at the same time, my orchestras are sounding beautiful and my kids are understanding what I'm conveying to them. And so, and the other part of that is being a woman in my field was extremely rare when I first started conducting, especially at the level that I am. And so I went through a lot of learning about what other people thought I should be doing and then deciding what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I've grown over the years to feel more secure in what I have decided is going to be me on the podium.
Yeah.
And I've dealt with a lot of people who say that you should be one way, but then being able to express it the way I want and being secure in that is where that's when you've finally gotten to where you're happy as with what you're doing. And especially when your students are like, no, I understand. It's totally clear.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, okay, great.
That's good to know.
Then this is the symbol. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm showing it.
Yeah. Do you feel that your conducting language has evolved over time, not just because, we all grow over time no matter what, but as far as how, as the years go by, generations change, the students change and how they are as they go through. I mean, has that ever been reflected? Have you ever made any, do you think it's evolved over time in that kind of way? Or do you think you've kind of really just developed it and you've kind of stayed pretty consistent over the years?
I think that my conducting has gotten better over the years, but because I have adapted myself to my new environments as I grow, and the students change. Your program grows, and as they grow and get better and better and better, they often start to be more intuitive and understanding, and so you can reflect that. And as you get better in what you do, you can be a little more showy in some respects.
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks that stay in elementary and middle school tend to not evolve as far in their conducting because their students are not as evolved yet
exactly.
in their
they
techniques.
Don't need to necessarily.
And so you have to be very clear in your patterns to those kids. And the fact that my program has evolved has meant that I've been able to evolve as a conductor a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And I haven't had to be as straightforward in, like, say, a 4 pattern.
Yeah.
That I can actually express more of the musicality in my conducting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more freeing
Yeah.
to be able to get up there. I tell the students, because our students start in kindergarten in our district, or pre-K, depending on the school, and because of that, they have grown with the program, and when they get to me, in turn, the program has grown, and because of that, they just, I tell them it's like being able to sit on top of the pyramid of this incredible program and just being able to paint with what I'm given is such a luxury.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful. And so I make sure that they understand how much I appreciate them and the work that they have done up to that point, as well as the people who are preparing those students up until that point. Because being able to conduct Tchaikovsky or Dvorak or Brahms, or, I mean, we did the Brahms double 2 years ago with 2 of our, that's unheard of in high school. That is a doctoral level piece. And those students were just absolutely mind-bogglingly good. And so just being able to get up there and paint is just one of the most freeing and wonderful experiences. It's one of those things that lets me get up every single day and go, I just want to go to work. It's so fun.
Yeah, no, that's, I finally got to really experience that yesterday, actually, as a composer. I'll say the University of Texas at Permian Basin, their choir had commissioned a piece from me last year, and so they're getting ready to premiere it next week. And so yesterday I drove into Midland, and I got to work with their choir. You know, they've already learned the piece, and so I was really just there to kind of make it, you know, really, you know, come to life even more so. And honestly, I didn't even conduct. I let Frank Eichner do the conducting, but I was there listening and just working with them and really, you know, making music, right? Like, and especially with, you know, a piece of my own, it really, like, I was a little nervous going in because I'd never really done much of that before. And then going out, I was like, wow, this is awesome. This is fun. But I'm also really lucky that I don't have to deal with all the, all the stuff way before. I just get to walk in and then reap the benefits of all the hard work.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about our winter concert is we always perform with a college professor. I always bring one in to perform with them. And I let the college professor decide what piece they want to play. They ask me, what can we do? And I say, well, this is what we can do, and this is our limitations. Although, you know, I always tell them our string players can play anything. It's just a matter of whether we can get a piece that if we need some, you know, any of the band members at that time of year, it's very difficult. And one of the things that they always comment on, which makes me so excited and so happy, is that we prepare the orchestra so well that once they get there, they really only need one rehearsal. And then they can walk on stage and just do whatever they want, and the kids will follow them. And it's just really, really cool that they are so happy to keep coming back, first of all, because a lot of our students, because of those relationships we build, get college scholarships to those universities, because bringing those college professors in allows them to see your program and meet the kids, and then tells them, oh, hey, I want to recruit that kid. You know, I want that kid. And then they give them lots of money, and it's great.
It literally pays off. Let us take a quick break real quick so I can tell you a little bit about this podcast's primary sponsor, which is Christian Fortner Music. That's right, my own music business. This is the primary platform that I use to sell my music, and you can find it at www.christianfortner, that's Fortner, music.com. Now, you may be thinking, oh, I don't know, this guy is a young composer. Does he really know what he's doing? Well, to be honest, none of us composers really know what we're doing, if we're being completely honest with ourselves. But if you want to kind of get an idea of what my music might be like and if it might be a good fit for your ensemble, you can actually get a free copy of music from me. That's right, a free piece of music. This isn't just a study score. This is full score and parts that you can use for your ensemble to perform completely for free. And you can do that by signing up for my mailing list. So if you go to my website, Christian Fortner, that's Fortner, music.com/mailings, You can sign up for my mailing list right there, and you'll get a link in your inbox where you can select a piece of music for either choir, string orchestra, or band. And I should also mention that the choir piece, it can be either an SAB, SA, or TB version. So for any of you out there that are looking for SAB, SA, TB, specific voicings like that, then this might be a good opportunity for you. So yeah, that's about it. Again, if that's something you'd be interested in, just check it out on my website. And now we can get back to the episode. Okay, so let's talk strings. I want to talk a little more specifics. So let's kind of flip what we were talking about earlier. So you had a string background, and you had to teach choir for a little bit, middle school choir as a part of your job. Well, what would you say for those of us, especially like on me and Kara's side of things, that we're more on the choral side, not even instrumental, right? But you could also say just more of band, but and you're in a position where you have to teach, it could be a beginning strings class or just, that kind of thing. And I know that, we've already established that you need to get help, right? But whenever you think of just off the top of your head, what are the fundamental things that you need to understand, especially that might be different from, like the choral setting, what are some things that you think you got to make sure you know this? And I know that's a really broad question. But
where do you even get started?
I know there's no way to really.
I mean, first of all, if you're a vocal person and they've told you to teach beginning strings, don't do it.
All right.
Because unless you have played a stringed instrument, there's so many things you can do wrong that will cause that student to either have pain or, be unhappy in things because they're not able to perform the way they want to perform, or they may end up truly hurting themselves. And you have got to get some training in that. I would just say, if you're a vocalist and you've never played a stringed instrument, that is not a good choice.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
And I hate to say that, but it is as what I didn't mention is I actually started on violin. I played violin, and my father will tell this story, but he claims that I was 10 months old and we were living in this little trailer in Reno, Nevada on the side of a washout. And he was teaching private lessons, and the students had all gone home, and he heard someone playing Twinkle, and he thought, oh no, what happened? Did one of the students, stick around? And so he went to look, and I had crawled into the closet, and I pulled out a violin, and I was playing Twinkle on the violin when I was 10 months old.
Wow.
So I started on the violin, and then I switched to cello when I was 9. And had I not played both of those instruments, I would not be the teacher I am today. Because I constantly play everything that's in the orchestra. I pick everything up. I play it all for the students because I truly believe if you can't demonstrate it, your kids are not going to be able to figure it out. Yeah. And so if you don't have the training to begin with, you are going to be, at such a disadvantage for those students. If you're a band person and you've taken some string tech classes, your fundamentals are there of performance for anything in the same way a choir person would be, or a vocalist would be. But again, you need to get help. Arlington ISD actually a few years ago couldn't hire enough string teachers, and they hired 5 band directors to teach strings. Oh, wow. But what they did next to that is they hired some veteran teachers. They hired to coach them, retired teachers. I believe it was Mandy Musser, who was incredible. I can't remember who else they hired to coach those folks, but there's a lot of veteran teachers in Arlington that helped out with a lot of those transitions, including in Fort Worth ISD, Diane Harper and Bill Huff and Mandy Musser and Lynn Stone, all these incredible teachers that help those band directors at least get a foot in the ground.
Yeah.
And and I'm not sure how many actually continued with strings. I believe now most of them have now moved on to band jobs, but But it was a challenge, even for the veteran teachers,
Yeah.
to say, okay, so today we're just going to start with pizzicato.
Yeah.
We're not even going to touch the bow.
Yeah.
And we're not going to touch the bow for 6 weeks because, for two reasons. One, that band director did not know how to use it yet, and hold it properly and teach it, let alone teach it. Right?
Yeah.
Those are things that even people who have played instruments for 10 years have difficulty doing correctly still. I have students that started in kindergarten and they're still having issues with bowl holds.
Yeah.
And so it's just such a daunting task unless you've had that help. And again, in any time you're teaching something you don't know how to do, you've got to get help.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, of course.
Always build those relationships. Find someone who's a veteran teacher who can coach you through it, teach you the process.
Yeah. And subscribe to Two Set Violin on YouTube.
Oh my gosh, I love Two Sets so much.
Yeah, no, they're
my 7-year-old is obsessed with watching them.
Yeah,
it's just hilarious.
Yeah, I honestly, one of my dreams is to get them on this podcast eventually, because the truth of the matter is they are music educators, because they're teaching so many people about classical music and about strings specifically. And so, like, honestly, I actually kind of genuinely say that as, that's really good just for dipping your toes into the string side of things and just getting an idea. They're always reacting to people incorrectly, playing the violin on or whatever on movies and stuff.
Absolutely.
And so that's actually very education. They show how it's supposed to be. Like, it's really good.
They did a world tour a couple of years ago, and they came to Irving, and we all went and saw them.
Really?
It was incredible. Yes,
that's
and
amazing.
We got their autographs. So in my classroom, I actually have their autograph poster.
Oh, I think I vaguely remember seeing that when I visited. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. So
it was very cool.
One of these days we'll get.
They actually, you know what they did? They took, just bringing it home, they took a band student in the audience and they taught them how to play violin in 5 minutes.
Wow.
Which was really cool.
Oh my gosh.
They had this little thing that they do, and it was hilarious, and she did a great job.
Wow.
There's always going to be position issues and all of that, but I can fake teaching choir in the same way that a lot of band directors can fake teaching orchestra.
Yeah.
And so, you can fake it till you make it, but is it really the best thing for those kids?
Sure.
You got to consider that as well.
Definitely.
I can tell you that when I had what's that called? Wind pedagogy. I was a terrible flute and clarinet player. I was awful, just god awful. And to this day, I still cannot transpose.
Oh.
I don't know how they do it.
Oh, yeah, me neither. Yeah.
And so it's wonderful that I have incredible people like at my school, like Suzanne Bell, who are horn players that I can say, okay, what note is this again?
Yeah, for sure.
And they can just do it in their head.
So all those of y'all listening, and even veteran teachers that still can't transpose, that should make you feel better.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I can attest to that too as a composer as well. I played viola 4th grade through 7th grade, so 4, 5, 6, 7, so 4 years basically, and that was just beginning elementary all the way to middle school, and even just those few years has made a huge difference in how I'm able to understand the instruments when I'm writing for them. I mean, I don't know all of the specific, I can't just look at a double stop and immediately know, is that going to work? But I can figure it out enough because I know how the fingerings work. And on top of that, strings are a very visual instrument, which is part of the reason I like strings a lot, is because I'm a very visual person and I can really picture them playing what I'm writing and that kind of thing. And so even just having that little bit of experience can really go a long way. So I should also mention that this is just kind of a side note, but I do a lot of choral stuff, but man, I think in my heart, strings are always where it's been for me as far as like emotion and writing goes, because that's what I initially grew up with, and I kind of talked about that a little bit in the one of the first episodes we did here. So I always love the strings. So so kind of going into more specifics in regards to, teaching strings and let's say more of like a more advanced setting, high school, as you're getting students, do you teach, is it 10th grade through 12th grade at LD Bell, or do you?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes, we have sophomore through senior.
Gotcha. Yes, that's right. Because, HEB does that's kind of how they do the high school level there.
Yes, we have junior high that is 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
We are the last one in the state
That's-
that still does
Yeah,
that.
that's wow. That's a whole nother discussion. But
Yes, it
I
is.
think we talked about that when Bill Harden was on here. But so you're getting 10th graders coming in, and then you're pushing out seniors, of course, and you want to see a lot of, you don't want them to look or sound the same than when they came in. So what are some of the biggest things you try to focus on throughout those years, and what are some of the biggest challenges that you see across the board that you really feel like these are the things we need to take care of in order to be successful specifically when it comes to strings?
Specifically when it comes to strings, well,
If it is specific to strings, or maybe it's for
right.
anybody.
I think one of the biggest challenges is taking them to the next level in high school of their evolution as musicians. They come in having that background, especially for our kids, they start at two different ages. So we have those that start in kindergarten in Suzuki, and then we have those that start in 7th grade as beginners. And there's a huge disparity between the levels usually of those students. So the ones that start in kindergarten will end up usually being in my varsity group, which is playing professional literature. And that's very highly unusual.
Wow.
That is not normal
Yeah,
for
sure.
programs. And then you have those that start in 7th grade who can be anywhere from, my second group and third group level. And there are Suzuki kids that are in my second group as well. It's just, a matter of how far they've traversed in their journey. But my non-varsity group, like this year, is essentially most varsity groups level. They're playing grade 4s and grade 5s, and that's highly unusual as well. So when I get these kids, I think the first thing I want to do is now take them from school music into the next level, which is how do we express ourselves through that music now?
Yeah.
How do we take it? In academics, they talk about the levels of questioning. Level 1 question is a yeah duh question, as we call it. That's our, okay, what color is this? That is red. That's your level 1 question. When you take it to the highest level of that, we call that, inferencing and trying to take it beyond just the simple. And so that, I think, is the biggest challenge for what I do right now, especially when we do full orchestra. Because we have kids that come from marching band season to bam, now you're doing Tchaikovsky. So unless your show was prolific, and a lot of our shows are prolific, especially this last one, my goodness, the things they did with butterflies and music was incredible. But coming from, okay, right, left, to, okay, now I want you to change the tempo however you feel fit is really challenging for those students that are used to having a metronome beat out, and so that is truly a challenge. I think Suzanne said it really well last year. We were talking with I think it was Cliff Evans from UTA. I can't remember when we had this conversation, but I believe it was when he was coming to work with our full orchestra, that we start things differently in each of our worlds, and we've been learning from each other. I've been learning from choir, and she's been learning from me, and I've been learning from band. And so we've kind of learned each other's styles and how they start groups. So, the band will start with the metronome, and then they'll teach music, and I will start with the music and then teach the metronome. Like we do things differently. And in a choir is always flexible.
Maybe a litlittle too
Just
flexible.
Getting the kids to stand and face front and not talk is amazing to me. So there's kind of a crude way to put it, but I'm not gonna do that here. But it's a whole other world, And so once they get to that level of literature, they have to learn to be flexible and learn to how to express their feelings through their music,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just, okay, here's the music, let's play, here's the contest,
Mm-hmm.
let's,
Yeah.
bark out a grade. And, so that I think in our world, especially the string world, where there's so much emotive music, as you were
Mm-hmm.
saying,
Mm-hmm.
like what you enjoy writing for, that, you have to be able to teach that. And that's a challenge to anyone.
Yeah, definitely. And getting to that point where that's what you can focus on. Um, I hear all the time with Dr. Romine's in choir is he's like, we're singing a piece called "The Road Home" by Stephen Paulus, and um, it's a really beautiful, emotional piece. And he said a while back we were hashing out notes and stuff like that, and he was like, "Man, I will tell y'all, it is so tempting for me to just try to make music with y'all right now, but that's
Yeah.
literally not possible. Like that's going to ruin it if we try to do that
Right.
now. There has to be an order to these things, and
Right.
it's just a matter of keeping yourself in check, and then that's good. That's not a bad problem to have, because you're excited, you're ready to go and do a lot of that stuff, but it's getting all those things sorted out first so you can get there.
Right. One of those things that has been really neat is to watch the evolution of our choir, in fact,
Mm-hmm.
because when I first got to Bell, it is a different choir than it is now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's some of the things that have changed is when every winter we play with the choir. We've done Hallelujah Chorus and
Mm-hmm.
Messiah and all this. When we play with the choir, my kids are very quiet and they just kind of sit there and listen for instruction. And my dogs are in the backyard.
Oh, you're fine.
I'm actually bringing this broadcast to you from my RV, so
Yeah.
my children
Oh,
are not
nice.
running around. Anyway, so one of the things that has been neat to watch over the years is, consonants
Mm-hmm.
have changed.
Yes, yes.
Getting things to line up differently when you
Mm-hmm.
work with the orchestra, especially with Finlandia last year when we were playing Finlandia. And the first run through, we had barely had any time to get through anything with them. We had like one rehearsal and then bam, it was pre-UIL.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did the run of Finlandia, and their breathing did not match our breathing at all.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and their syllables did not line up with our articulations.
Yeah.
And so being able to collaborate like that, we have all evolved as musicians at the school,
Mm-hmm.
because from the orchestra, we need to learn how to line these things up, and from the band, we need to learn how to line this rhythm up, and from the
Yeah.
orchestra, we can learn how to emote and stretch here, and from the
Mm-hmm.
choir, we can learn how to breathe in these areas.
Exactly.
And it's been so neat to be able to collaborate in that way, and then learn from each other how we can be better musicians over
Yeah.
the years.
Oh yeah. No, it's the ultimate combination of all of those things, well, first of all, I think just more districts need orchestra in general. More districts need strings. And that's a whole nother discussion. But
Yeah.
but on top of that, I mean, I've always felt like that's such an important aspect of being able to, because you grow up and you have the choir nerds and the band geeks and the orc dorks, and they're all in their own thing, but then you finally, that's your chance to bring them all together, and it's like the Avengers moment of music, right? Yeah, all coming
Absolutely.
together, and that's
Love it.
such a rewarding thing, and it's so powerful, and it's just cool.
It just really is.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just cool.
So that's a question I did want to ask, and you already kind of talked a lot about kind of that dynamic when you bring in the other ensembles, because I did want to talk about the difference between string orchestra versus full orchestra. For any string directors that are listening to this, that they have a string program, and they may be going good, and they're either they or some other people are saying, hey, you need to try to start doing some stuff, collaborating between the different ensembles. I mean, what do you think are what are some things to think about as you start going into that, whether that could be from a logistical perspective or just a plain teaching style perspective? What are the kind of the good steps you think to go about doing that?
You want to hear the interesting thing that I'm going to say, that may not be the expected answer,
Okay.
but your band director has to be on board, and you have to have the support from your administration to make it happen.
Really?
And logistically speaking, it can be difficult because, well, if there are people listening from around the United States, Texas is its own animal.
Yeah.
Texas, there's a reason I came to Texas, and the reason I came to Texas is because the programs here are built like, they say everything is bigger and better in Texas, but here they are built like people have put everything into it, just like football, just like, I mean, it's just incredible how the programs have been supported and grown and flourished. And it is not like that in the entire United States. I mean, I've been a lot of places, and I can tell you there are pockets around the United States where you have support, like Las Vegas, like there are places in New York, but in the rest of the United States in general, programs are only as strong as the will of their director. And that is, nothing can be more true than that in the rest of the United States. But in Texas, you have strong programs everywhere. And while some of them can be only as strong as the will of their directors, some of them are grown so big that they cannot fail, because they have such incredible support and foundation to their pyramid. And so when you're starting a full orchestra program, the first thing you have to have is your band director on board. And that can be the most challenging thing that there is in Texas, because marching band is such a big deal.
Yeah.
And time of year is such a big deal. And if you have your band director on board, there's almost no limits to what you can accomplish once you have their complete support. Because, I have a lot of friends that, they do full orchestra, but it's very piecemeal. If their band director's available, they might help, or they might conduct this piece, but they're not 100% on board. And one of the really amazing things that we have now is full support from our band department and choir department to put together something really collaborative and incredible. And so once you have that support, there really is no limit to what you can do.
Cool.
And so grow that relationship with your band director.
Yeah,
because that's the only way it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, no, that's good to know, because it's really easy to think about. You think about doing something like that, and it's so easy to just have the mindset, I would imagine, of you're just focusing on, okay, well, how am I going to teach differently, or how am I going to get the brass to do that? And it's like you're going to get there, but you're already a few steps further ahead than what you need to be focusing on, because it's really just, that's the foundation of where that comes from. So yeah, no, that's
absolutely,
that's awesome. Is there anything in particular that you want to talk about that you think is worth discussing on here for other people to listen to? I
would love for folks to realize that there are a lot of districts that don't have orchestra, especially in our area. And it's really kind of mind-boggling to both parents and students that there aren't programs with orchestras. And right now, especially, in DFW, it's interesting because you have some incredible programs in DFW. Arlington, Fort Worth has some phenomenal orchestras.
Yeah, same with Austin.
Plano, I mean, oh my gosh, Frisco, of course HEB, but there's a lot of at Garland, and I mean, oh my gosh, there's some incredible programs, and there's places like South Lake that don't have orchestra, and that just blows my mind a little bit. I know it's difficult post-COVID to find directors for anything, and that I don't diminish that fact at all, but there are a lot of kids out there that are taking private lessons from members of like the Dallas Symphony that are just, they don't have a program in their district. It's really sad because they're missing out on that experience and that full orchestra experience. And so now, the LD Bell Band program is this incredibly amazing program. It is well established, well known. And now that we have an orchestra program, those kids come to me and I say, you're incredible kids. You have an incredible program. Now you're members of the orchestra. And And it's just a whole different experience, a whole different world. They suddenly have to be soloists in everything that they play.
Yeah.
And you don't get that experience necessarily in band unless there's a solo in the show or, this particular piece. There's a lot of bands that have to play what we call bandmestra music because they don't have an orchestra program. Yeah. I remember maybe 10 years ago, the LB Bell Band played Shostakovich Fifth. And I was like, wouldn't that be neat if we could actually play Shostakovich Fifth?
That'd be awesome.
Call
me the day y'all do.
And right, of course. Well, we actually did a movement of it with Region, and
nice.
Most of our kids in our top group make Region, so they got to play it, but it was not far, But someday we'll get there.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not far off. I'll definitely let you know.
Cool.
I'll tell you what, the one thing they all want to do is Mahler.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
And I'm like, I would love to do Mahler. Just give me a year or two.
Once you've done Mahler, you can go home at that point.
Right, exactly. Tell you what. Oh, the Martin Orchestra played. I want to say they played Mahler 10 a few years ago.
Wow.
Oh, good Lord.
Incredible.
Oh no, they did Shostakovich 10th. Actually, that blew my mind. Wow. It was incredible. But once you have that orchestra program, you can do so much stuff that there's no limit.
Yeah.
So for those districts out there that don't have it yet, you should consider. And the other thing is the universities need to start funding their music programs in the string side of it.
Yep.
It's kind of devastating to us right now that some of the local universities have lost so much recently because those students that became music education majors that ended up being our teachers are no longer teaching. They don't exist anymore, and so that's where our shortage of teachers is coming from, which in turn is going to cause a shortage of students in the universities.
It's like a chicken and the egg kind of thing.
Exactly. So if the universities don't fund those programs, we're going to lose a lot of the stuff that our incredible baby boomers started.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really sad.
Yeah, no.
And we've known this was coming for 20 years. We knew all those folks were going to be retiring and did nothing about it.
Wow.
And so now we're at that point where that plus COVID has caused us to lose a lot of the teachers that we really need.
Yeah.
We really need them. And so, all of DFW right now has a shortage of cello teachers, for example. And that's a in my brain, it's a well-documented reason why that has happened, although not everybody understands it.
Sure.
But, we need those people.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. And, so those of y'all listening, if you're a string teacher or even a young string student and you're going into education, just keep that in mind that you're a part of the generation that is going to determine ultimately where this ends up going. So you heard the baby boomers got it going, but now it's time for the Zoomers, the Gen Z people and the millennials.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
I know this is a shock, but I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm even older than that.
Yeah,
so.
No, I got you. I think my parents are Gen X. Yeah. But yeah.
Oh man, now I feel old.
Yeah, and my dad and I was really blessed too. My dad played an orchestra. He grew up in Kansas City, and they have lots of good orchestra stuff up there. And then he played in the Baylor Symphony, and so I got to hear a lot of good violin stuff from him. But when I mentioned this in my story, and I think it was episode 3 of this podcast, I mentioned I played viola when I was young, and then we moved to Austin, and I was in Leander ISD, and they have incredible band and choral programs there, but that's one of the districts that they just don't have an orchestra, and it's, I mean, I don't know. There's no way for me to know all the logistical reasoning behind it, because I know it's a district that they care about the arts, right? That's not my worry, but it's just one of those things where it's like, oh man, but if we had it, it would be incredible. So
Southlake has this incredible brand new performing arts facility and no orchestra.
Really? Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and meanwhile, we have our building from 1953 and
yeah.
our teeny. But we have these incredible programs, and so they should be putting their money where their mouth is a little bit. It would be
Exactly.
very helpful
Yeah,
if we had some orchestras
for
around.
sure. You have the shiny new car, but it doesn't matter if you don't give it a
Right.
drive every day.
Right.
Very
Exactly.
cool.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's a good place to kind of wrap this up. Kind of food for thought, especially if you're on the orchestra side of things, or even administrative side of things. Just remember the importance of having an orchestra, because it is worth mentioning that. I mean, I don't have enough experience in this to really see the patterns, but from my perspective, I think it's interesting how it's usually the string orchestra director that I feel like that responsibility of bringing together the band and the choir, like having that full orchestra, is that usually headed by the string orchestra teacher, or do you see?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I want.
Yes, it
Is
is.
there a reason for that, or?
I would find that is in Texas, a lot of the band directors have no orchestra experience,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so either they're scared of it, or they're just not as familiar with the literature.
sure.
But all string players have played in full orchestras before
Hmm.
they graduate from college, and we're really unique in that our choir director is actually a violinist.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so, and
Wow.
she's an incredible choir director,
Mm.
but she also will play, once in a while she'll pop in and play violin with us, which is
Really? I
amazing.
don't think
So,
I don't think I
yeah,
knew that. That's super cool.
yes, she is a violinist. Actually, when we did Rachmaninoff Third some years ago with a Van Cliburn pianist, she came and played violin, and I brought Sergio Espinoza in,
Hmm.
who used to be the conductor of the UTA orchestra, and they had been stand partners in college, and I did not know
Wow.
that. So I put them next to each other, and I said surprise, and they
That's
it
cool.
was great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, usually there's the orchestra person who brings everyone together because of that knowledge, and they're not scared of it. They're
Yeah,
they're willing to go the extra mile to make that incredible
yeah.
experience happen because they've experienced it, and oftentimes they miss it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
and they
sure.
want to bring that to the
Yeah.
students.
So as an orchestra director, that kind of confirms that. I mean, I think you have a really important responsibility to be able to bring those opportunities to young people, so that they in turn can experience that. But then also to the community, and really showing the public and showing administrators and whoever it may be that this is something that's worth doing. And it ultimately goes back to, I mean, you don't know who's going to be sitting in that audience and is going to hear that performance, and that's going to change the course of where they're going in their life. Because that happened
Absolutely.
to me, and that's happened to so many people. So that's you have so many people that come together, but I think ultimately you're just playing for the one, for one
Absolutely.
person out there. So, well, that's super cool. That's awesome. Well, before we wrap it up, can you just tell us a little bit more about your orchestra program at Bell, and if there's any way that people can connect with y'all, or where they can find y'all?
Absolutely. We have a website. It's ldbellorchestra.com. And on that website, we have a Twitter and we have Facebook as well. So you can find them from our website. And yeah, we're all over the place. We're on social media.
Yeah.
We're on, yeah. And we actually, coming up soon, our booster club is working the air show, the Alliance Air Show
Ooh.
this weekend. So that's kind of cool. And so they can go and support us at different events. We run concessions for things like the Lights All Night Music Festival,
Awesome.
and sometimes we work golf events like the Colonial and the Byron Nelson,
Yeah.
and so then people can come support the Aldi Bell Orchestra students at different
Cool.
events. And we do have a YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so all of our concerts go up on the YouTube channel. Actually, our fall concert I'm getting ready to post very soon
Oh,
in the
good.
next couple of days, I hope, so that folks can listen to that.
Perfect.
And very often we perform with our junior high as well, and they have an incredible program as well.
Great.
Actually, this year they were named a national winner of the Mark of Excellence National Orchestra
Wow.
Honors
Oh, that's
Competition. Yeah,
amazing. Congrats.
and our full orchestra and our non-varsity orchestra were named commended winners this
Wow.
year, and so for the past I think 6 years in a row we won either national or commended winner of the
Wow.
National Orchestra Honors Competition, which is really cool.
That's amazing. That's
So we're
incredible.
very, very proud of Central Junior High and Ms. Truex and Mr. T
Mm-hmm.
and all of the CCP teachers that helped them get there. And then, of course,
Mm.
that helps feed into us. As I
Yeah.
said, I just get to sit on top of this incredible
Yes,
pyramid
yes.
and get to paint, and it's a wonderful, wonderful program and experience.
Cool.
So
That's
yeah, feel
awesome.
free to connect with us. ldbellorchestra.com and Facebook, Twitter.
We'll have all of those pages linked down. We'll have them all linked down below in the description. So if y'all want to check them out,
Awesome.
and yeah, I listen to y'all stuff on YouTube. And my mother-in-law, she's the registrar at LD Bell, and she keeps up with y'all, and she'll always send me links to like, hey, here's the recent
I
performance.
love
like,
her
awesome.
so much. She's wonderful.
Yeah, she's great.
She popped by to say hi the other day,
Oh, good.
and I was like, yeah, this is great.
Awesome, cool. Well, Allison, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm sure we'll have you back one of these days, especially with how rare orchestra people are these days. We need to pool our resources here. So, but no,
not a problem.
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.